Welcome into another edition of the James Boyd podcast. We're coming off quite the game, Jim. I am joined by my editor, Jim Ayello. And of course, this was a stressful weekend for Colts fans and one that ended in triumph as they come from behind to beat the New England Patriots. So we'll talk all about it on this podcast, the highs, the lows, the end, what it means going forward, all of that. But let's start, Jim, with that final drive. 19 plays, 80 yards, 2-point conversion, game.
The only thing you missed there was the three fourth down conversions that they managed to pull out of their hats, we'll say. Anthony Richardson, it's too early in his career to say this definitively, but he is showing that he might have that like clutch gene, right? Like we've seen this before. We saw it a couple of weeks ago against the Jets. We saw it on Sunday. We saw it when they were down by 20 against the Rams last year. We've seen it show up a lot, and that's a really, really encouraging sign. I guess I do want to ask you, inside the stadium, they get the ball, 5 minutes left, need the touchdown to tie the game. Like again, I don't know if you knew they were going to go for two or not, but needed the touchdown to tie the game. What was your gut reaction? What was your gut feeling? Like, was he going to get it done, or is it going to come up short? How did you feel kind of at the beginning of the drive and then as the drive progressed? Because I am curious what the feeling inside the stadium was like.
Man, I thought that game was over. I will not lie to you. And for those listening, I have to send in a quick story after the game ends, like right after the game ends. And that version had the Colts losing and the defense being a big part of why they lost. And
Indeed.
I just thought, okay, well, last drive, they're probably not going to go down there and score because they really haven't done enough of that in the second half. I mean, they were coming off Anthony throwing the second interception of the day, getting the ball back, and I was like, man, he's been off today. And then something flipped. And as they kept inching closer and kept converting these fourth downs, I was like, man, like, what if they do this? And then it got down to, okay, well, how cruel can sports be? Because when it's 4th and 3,
Yep.
and you've made it all the way down there, I was like, this is the time where like Colts fans are probably like, I'm getting my heart broke. Because it happens in sports. And you need it so much to go right, so much to go in your favor. And of course, on 4th down, here's Alec Pierce catching the touchdown pass and make it a 1-point game. And to his credit, he's had some big time moments in his career. Now that I think about it, I remember he had the game winning catch as a rookie with Matt Ryan. Obviously, he's had some other big catches throughout his career so far. He had that one this past Sunday. He's kind of developed a knack, too, of coming up with the big catch and the big moment. I even think about to the game in Jacksonville, which they lost. However, that fourth quarter, he put him on his back with some crazy catches. So they get the 4th down, and I remember asking guys in the press box, like, would you go for 2? And honest to God, I did say I would go for 2. But it wasn't because, as Shane Steichen said, it was a gut feeling or, him wanting to put the ball in number 5's hands. It was more so me saying they can't stop their defense or their offense at all. So How about you just roll the dice? And again, in short yardage situations, 2 yards and in, Anthony Richardson is a great option. And it worked out pretty well, obviously, with him bowling into the end zone and using that second effort to get in and them holding on for victory. So it was crazy ending. I did not expect it to happen. I remember scrapping everything that I wrote and just rewriting a couple of paragraphs. Basically on like that final Patriots drive, I was like, all right, I got some time here. And for a split second there, Jim, I thought for a second that they had made that 68-yard field goal because it was on line. If it was from like 60, they probably win that game. But I mean,
I think even like 62.
I know
it was not 63. He was close.
It was also just a funny decision, in my opinion, because it's like I think Gerard Mayo said after the game, like, hey, we've won some Super Bowls with plays like that. And I'm like, yeah, but like no one in the history of football has made a 68-yard field goal ever.
Yeah, not plays like that.
I'm like, that's not exactly like apples to apples. So
no.
All that to say, it was incredible performance. It changed the entire narrative of the game, of the Colts' season, playoffs still on the table. If they had lost the game, it would have been basically an impossibility, essentially. And I'm curious to know from your perspective, while you're busy checking, box scores and watching the game, What do you think of just the composure Anthony showed, even with some of the mishaps? I'll let you get into it, but there were some
Yeah.
plays there that I'm sure a couple of pass catchers would like to have back because they didn't actually catch the pass.
I I give him a lot of credit because as somebody watching on the TV, I was frustrated for Anthony Richardson, going like, "What? Just catch the ball!" Like I wanted to see if he could do it, right? Like I just wanted to see can he do it from an analytical and story narrative perspective. But I hate those little caveats, like if they had come up short, you would have had it right. They came up short in that final drive, but these guys dropped crucial passes, and if they had caught these crucial passes, maybe they would have. You know what I mean? I hate that. I hate those little caveats. I just want it to be, again, black or white. Give me it. Did he do it or did he not? Like that's what I want to know. And so I was very frustrated, but he did. He kept his composure. I wanted to look at this drive. There were a couple of things that stood out to me about the Colts offense in particular and Anthony Richardson. One is that this game came down to the end, and no Josh Downs, so this does, that factors in. But boy, does he want to go to Alec Pierce when the game is on the line. Like, I
Mm-hmm.
mean, we're talking about the first play he threw was to Pittman, but there's a incomplete pass to Pierce twice in a row on first down and second down. He throws another one down the middle on 1st and 10 from like the 50-yard line, and then obviously he goes to him again at the end of the game. I mean, with touch, by the way. I think I was critical of Alec Pierce quite a bit last year. I didn't think he was ever going to amount to what they were hoping they would get when they drafted him, and now I think he's probably exactly what they thought they were getting when they drafted him, which is a guy who can stretch the field, who is a good, willing blocker in the open field, but who also has a little more versatility. Can do those deep crossers, the deep ins, the digs, the stuff that Richardson loves throwing, and more importantly, the stuff that Steichen likes opening up with those like play action passes.
Mm-hmm.
So, and the hands have come along. Like there were some drops early in his career, some crucial ones. I think you've talked to him about some of the emotional ones that he'd had
Yeah, I
in
mean, he
big
dropped
moments.
his literally first ever potential touchdown pass
Yeah,
against Houston, and then got concussed on like the next series, and that was like, okay, well, it can't get any worse to start your career unless you
right.
continue.
No, it's exactly that's the perspective we need. Is that I actually think for the first time since I started covering the Colts years ago, they actually are in a good position at the receiver spot. They don't have super like full fledged superstars at any of them, but between Pittman, Pierce, and Downs, that's a great three. And then as you kind of have to wait and see on AD Mitchell, he's shown some great things. He's shown some bad things. He was one of the guys who made the critical drop. I mean, gosh, Anthony Richards couldn't have handed to him any better on that and with touch. So many of these drops we were talking about before we started recording. So many of these drops with Anthony Richardson, it's because he throws them pretty hard, so it makes it a little bit less catchable of a pass. But the drops that we had on this drive from Granson and from AD Mitchell, those are thrown with touch. Those are passes you have to bring in. Like those weren't thrown too hard. There wasn't a defender that was. I mean, again, like the guy was on AD Mitchell's hip, but man, you got to catch that ball if you're in the NFL. So anyway, I did want to point out that Alec Pierce has become such a go-to trusted target for Anthony Richardson in more than just taking deep shots down the field. He's become more than that to this Colts offense, particularly when Josh Downs doesn't play. Here's the other thing I wanted to ask you though. At the end, 1st and 8, first and goal, I should say, from the 8-yard line. I thought I wanted to get your read on this because it's 3 straight runs that Steichen calls for. It's a run from Anthony Richardson, a run from Anthony Richardson, and a run from Jonathan Taylor that lost the yard, the last one, and then Richardson's second down run went for no gain. Did you feel in the moment he thought we can bully the Patriots and our run offense is going to bully them into the end zone? Or did you? I had this intrusive thought that Steichen was a little hesitant to trust Richardson's arm this close to the goal. Again, he throws hard. There's not a lot of like again, he's gonna. I don't know. I was a little. I was kind of sorting through my thoughts, going, does Steichen not trust him to throw the ball here until he has to 4th down, or was that just kind of the way you saw the game playing out? What was your read in that situation? Because I was thinking about it as we were going, man, like run, run, run. This is interesting. Like I wonder if he didn't want him to throw.
You know what? It's a great question. I do think that there is a little bit of that thought in Shane's mind, but I also think that it was a gotta have a situation. And he's talked about it. He doesn't want to expose Anthony with unnecessary risks, unnecessary hits. and things like that. But he's always said, and gotta have it moments, I need him to go out there and just be a dude. And I
Yeah.
thought that was him leaning into Anthony's strengths as a runner on a day where, again, that last drive, kudos. Anthony made some plays happen, got the huge PI for Michael Pittman Jr. to get him down there.
Yep.
A
Yep.
huge fourth down conversion with Mo Cox. That was kind of a scramble play where Mo wasn't even supposed to be a pass catcher on the play. Just made something happen, improvised. All that to say, I still would probably lean more towards Anthony's legs getting me what I need.
Okay.
And it had worked earlier on that drive because I believe they had another like 4th and 2. They called a QB run. You get 6 yards to the outside. You're just wondering, okay, can we win it in the trenches? And maybe you're feeling a little bit more empowered because you have retooled your offensive line as well. You have
It
Bernard
looks better
Bryman is back there.
for sure. Yeah.
Mark Lewinsky's in there, right guard over Dalton Tucker,
Yeah.
who got benched. Matt Gonzalez, had his moments as well. And then obviously Quentin Nelson and Danny Pinter at center. So I thought of it as he's going to his pick and roll, as they say in basketball, like his bread and butter, which is using Anthony as a runner. And then it's funny because you mentioned those plays leading up to the Alec Pierce throw where you kind of just had to throw the ball. The next play, 2-point conversion.
Yeah.
They didn't throw that.
Back to
They
the
ran
run.
it. So it's like,
And it wasn't even. That's what I'm curious about. He doesn't give Richardson the choice, like a pass with a run option, or tells him, "Hey, we're going to drop back and throw, but run if you have to." It's designed runs, like they are. And I am curious if that's purposeful at this point in his career because, and here I climb. You guys can't see me climbing back on my soapbox here. Anthony Richardson won't scramble. I like maybe I don't know if Steichen knows that or if he wants him to do it more, maybe he tells him not to. I'm not sure, but he scrambled once. It was a great scramble, and I was excited. Thank you for calling me out on Twitter there, and I got a bunch of listeners. Thank you all for shouting me out there for doing that. But one scramble, and it was a free first down because this offense is so vertical that when he does decide to scramble, there are very few defenders in between him and usually a first down marker that's only 10 yards away. So again, would encourage Anthony Richardson to scramble just a little bit more. But maybe Steichen knows he's not gonna. So those designed runs we're running. I'm running you, who is, I mean, again, it's a superhuman weapon he gets to use as a runner. I get that. I'm not even criticizing Steichen for these calls. I am just curious about the thought process, I suppose. Because you might not trust him to make the right decision on if I drop him back to pass, he's going to pass. You know what I mean? Like that's
right.
I'm looking at his scrambles for the last 3 games. It's against the Jets 0, Detroit 2, 1 against New England. Like he just doesn't scramble, like which is mind-boggling to me with somebody his size and speed. But maybe Shane Steichen knows I have to tell him to run to run. Like on that 4th and 3 to Mo that you brought up, I was sure he was going to take off and run.
Same. Oh my gosh.
And just plow through whoever he had to plow through to get the first down. And then he winds up and does that little like sidearm flick, and I was like, oh man! And he hits Mo perfectly, like you said, not even a design play, just him making a play. It's again incredibly impressive. And the pass to Pierce was right on the money, like on the crosser. Like if he had thrown it behind him, that game's over. So credit to him for coming up clutch and for making big passes. But I'm just very curious about Steichen's thought process in that situation. Like I have to tell him to run or tell him to pass because he's not going to choose to run on a drop back.
Yeah, I think the thing about Anthony is that he does seem to give you a chance when the game is close. And that doesn't mean it's going to come with a lot of great throws because, believe me, I was watching some of those throws, especially early in the second half. I was like, whoa, like these are way off. Who are you throwing to? A couple of them, I was like, man, is that intentional grounding? But he got out of the pocket. Like, it was that bad. And again, I think he was, 12 of 24, 109 yards passing, which to me seemed so low after that last drive because it took forever. You just think that he's got all these passing
80 yards, right? Yeah,
he didn't. He got a lot of them on that drive. But the part that I give Anthony credit for is that he does seem to have like a good ability, and every quarterback needs it, to forget the mistake and to just keep playing and keep taking cracks at it. And I even saw the emotion that he had displayed after the A.D. Mitchell drop.
Yeah,
there was a replay on the screen, and he's like grimacing, like looking up at the sky, like what is going on? And then he immediately snaps out of it. Next play, next opportunity, and goes for it. I think that matters a ton when you have someone who's in the quarterback spot where everything you do is going to be scrutinized to the nth degree, and where he knows he probably didn't have the best day, but he was able to kind of dig deep and get some help from his teammates as well and find a way to succeed. So that was it was fun. It was a cool experience to see. I will say this was also my first time seeing the players kind of come off the field after the game. I think there was just so much emotion that by the time we got down there, most of the time when we get down to the event levels, what they call it, field level in most stadiums for those listening, when we go down the elevator and we go to the visiting press room, it's all in these back tunnels in the bowels of the stadium. Most of the time, the players are already like in the locker room and we don't see them come off the field. But this time, we got down there and they hadn't all come off. There's JT, dapping it up with some of the fans and signing stuff. And then there's Anthony walking in. And I don't know what I expected, but he was like stone cold almost. Everyone was hyped up. You got, Colts PR running by and trying to get everything set up. And you got JT saying, I'll see you in 2 weeks. And then you got Anthony just dapping up his teammates and walking in like it's just another day at the office. And I'm like, wow, okay, if that is the standard he has for himself, and even like I told you before the pod, the answers he gave, very rudimentary, very regular. I even asked him about the emotion of winning that game, and he's like, well, we got another game in 2 weeks. And I'm like, dang, like, who is this guy? Where's the real Anthony Richardson? But I do think that part of that is a concerted effort to be more mature.
For sure.
Be more of the QB1 face of the franchise. But another part of it, I think, is also him sort of validating what he believes he already knew, which is he told us he was built for these moments. Mm-hmm. He said he wants these moments. And I think that you're seeing him kind of seize it. And so that was a really cool thing to see in real time. And I even asked a few players about it. And again, remember, he's doing this with his third different starting center this season. He's doing it with the right guard he's never played with before in a real game. And he's doing it with a rookie right tackle who a couple weeks ago was at left tackle. So it wasn't like the circumstances were perfect. And then, like you mentioned, he's missing his greatest safety valve in Josh Downs. And you still find a way to get it done. And so what I want to toss to you is, what do you think it says about him to string these moments together? I think we talked about this a lot, and it's been like, okay, he's had a moment. Can he stack them? And obviously, the Detroit game was not a game you want to stack from. But considering since he's come back, though, these last 3 games, 2-1, 2 game-winning drives, even in the Detroit game, I thought he looked better than he did earlier in the season. What are your thoughts just about him stacking and maybe building something for the first time we can actually see it?
Yeah, I'm willing to call this a 3-game run of above average play. Obviously, Detroit wasn't great. They lost 24-6. Second half was kind of a mess for that whole team, but it's an elite team. It's a team that's probably the favorite in the NFC. So expect some struggles with a young team. Mm-hmm. I will also add, as we do talk about this, you mentioned with that offensive line before we get back to the other thing, no sacks again. Good credit on them, but again, this is the Anthony Richardson that we've talked about. Like, he helps negate so many negative plays. I know some of the interceptions came, bad throws, get it, but like, he negates a lot of negative plays by being so good in the pocket and under pressure and being able to either scramble, throw the ball away, or get rid of the ball on time. So again, his average time to throw this last week was under 3 seconds. Same against Detroit. Same against the Jets. He's getting the ball out. So that is hugely important. Now, to answer your question, I do think we've talked about him a lot of times as a rhythm shooter, right? That's how we see Anthony Richardson, man. He's a rhythm shooter. He plays with confidence. I think most young quarterbacks, to be honest with you, you have to be kind of on a different tier of person probably to just walk into the NFL and not need, like, just come built with the confidence no matter what and just dominate from day one. Like, I do think you have to stack games in order to get to that place where you're going to be confident in yourself. Like, compare what you saw with the Patriots against the last time we saw him before the benching, which was against Houston, right? Like, he just looked discombobulated. He just didn't look, the end of that first half in particular. I'm not even talking about the tap out play. I don't really care about that. Like, he just didn't look like he was seeing the field at all.
He looked a
and
mess.
again, look, His time to throw is 3.5 seconds in that game. It's another half second longer because he didn't look comfortable. He didn't look like he knew what he wanted to do.
Nope.
Credit to D'Amico Ryans and all that, but like he just was a different quarterback at that point. It felt like, I mean, these last 3 games, it just looks like he's a guy who is so much more comfortable in the offense. And again, I give a lot of credit to Shane Steichen. You wrote about this a couple weeks ago. They are leaning into the things that he does well. They're using play action more. They're using design runs to, again, give him confidence, get the offense moving. I think it's not just confidence with completions with Anthony Richardson, obviously, because he wouldn't have a lot of confidence if it was just on completions.
Right.
But it's the offense moving. I think if the offense is moving and scoring points, that's when Anthony Richardson gets more confident. And they are doing a so much better job of that these last 3 weeks. Again, Detroit wasn't great, but I still think he played pretty well. He wasn't the reason they lost. So you stack these 3 games, and the great part for them now, especially a guy like Shane Steichen, you go into the bye week. That's most teams get this time to self scout earlier in the season. Like you just read about like what Philly did at their bye week in week 5. They ended up kind of resetting a bunch of things and going on this ridiculous run that they're going on. Steichen hasn't had that opportunity. The Colts haven't had this opportunity to kind of look back at what they've done and figure out how to improve. They've just had to go next week. Now they get a chance in a minute to kind of really analyze what they've done and how they can be better. And I think Anthony Richardson in particular, who has learned, as you've written, and I know you've talked to sources saying like he has learned what this process takes, he will also be able to take this time off to take a breath and go, okay, I am here all the time. I am investing my whole self into this thing. How can I improve? I think they have a huge game coming up against Denver, the biggest game of their season by far. It's fortunate for them that they have a bye week coming up. Obviously, so do the Broncos, but it's fortunate for them that they have a bye week coming up to reset and to get Richardson in the right place. Given the way we've seen him play the last 3 weeks, I strongly believe we might see the best version of Anthony Richardson in 2 weeks against Denver. Does that mean they win? I don't know. Denver Broncos have a great defense. They truly do. And Bo Nix is playing very, very well.
Yeah, I believe they're like number 3 in scoring defense in the NFL, only going up 18 points a game, which is, absurd.
But the way Richardson has responded to the benching and the way he's played the way he's played these last 3 weeks, I do believe, and the fact that he is as clutch as we've seen him be, I think we're going to see the best version of Anthony Richardson against Denver in a couple weeks.
So speaking of that, I know the first thing you told me, because for our listeners out there, I call Jim after every game, kind of go over the game plan. Okay, what am I writing? What's the angle? All right, I'll talk to you in a couple hours. Let's do it. And the first thing he told me was, hey, playoffs, still possible. Like, that's the angle I need you to take, James. And honestly, I thought about it, but I didn't. When I'm watching the game, and it's probably a good thing, I'm like so singularly focused on the game.
For sure.
That you kind of not forget, but you have to digest the magnitude sometimes a little bit later. And as I was going down the elevator and going to the press room, I was thinking, oh, wow, like that, this isn't just a game-winning drive. It isn't just a win. This is, if you didn't win, nail in the coffin, season over, you got nothing to play for other than development. And as much as I have said, and I'll stand by this, they're like not a Super Bowl winning team. They're not going to go on some crazy run. The Colts just aren't talented enough to do that. However, every player wants the chance to just get there and see what you can do. And I've talked to a lot of players about this. Honestly, you have a finite time to play the game of football, and literally any snap could be the end. I mean, DeForest Buckner was saying how fortunate and grateful he was that he didn't break his ankle in week 2 against Green Bay when he got, rolled up on. And this is a guy who hadn't missed a game due to injury. I think it might have been one game in like 9 years, something like that, prior to that injury. And so they all know any moment it could be taken away from you. Yeah, we thinking big picture. Yeah, they want to be there with Anthony for the long term and turn this thing around. But it's like, you don't know. You never know what the next year, game, week brings. So to be playing for something, even this year at 6-7, is a really good feeling for that group. And so that's what resonated with me talking to some of the guys. It's like, oh, no. And I know Anthony downplayed it. He's like, oh, just another game. I don't look ahead. I'm like, BS. I know you and everybody else is thinking about the playoffs because at this point, they're basically in it, if that makes sense. Like, they're in that mindset. There is no there is no downtime. There is no wiggle room. There's no room for error. There is no, like, taking your foot off the gas. There's none of that. I'm not saying that they would have before, but there's just no margin for error. So in a way, you're almost playing like you're in the NCAA tournament, and you got to just win to advance and keep going. And so all that to say, Denver is a huge matchup.
Yep.
And then really beyond Denver, the rest of the season. I mean, you got three more against some really bad teams. And, for those listening, please go check out the story. It just went up live today, actually, about the playoffs, me and Jim. And shout out to Austin Mock as well, our guy at The Athletic who does all of the NFL projection models and, win percentages and chances of certain scenarios happening. He's great at that stuff. We broke it down for you all and kind of laid out what needs to happen, how likely, all those types of things, right? And what's crazy is if they knock off Denver, they really do have a chance to they don't control their own destiny fully. You need some help. But man, they're about as good as you can be given how they started, benching your quarterback for 2 weeks, losing some games you probably should have won. I'm thinking about Green Bay in week 2. All that to say, man, like you're not in, there's worse spots to be in, especially if you can knock off Denver. And I truly think that Denver is almost like a de facto playoff game because, again, if you lose that one, it's really hard to gain ground on that team with them holding the final playoff spot right now in the AFC. But it's do or die. And I'm curious to know from your perspective, Jim, again, beyond Denver, how crucial is it to capitalize on these bad teams? Because we've all played sports. There's nothing more that you like as a competitor if you're not going to get in the dance than denying somebody else the chance to. So it's not like, I get it. The Giants, I question some of their decision making, and I think that they're very willing to position themselves to. You cover them more than I do, but I'm just saying, like, I get it. I know all those teams are jockeying for position to get the number one pick, but the players on those teams don't care about that. They want to win, and so how important is it? And can you maybe just lay out to the people who they're going to be facing in these games and why it's so important to just not squander this silver platter sort of slate of games?
To reiterate, like James said, if they don't beat the Broncos, season's over. They'll be 3 games back at Denver in the win-loss column, and they'll have lost the tiebreaker. They would essentially need Denver to lose out, and for the Colts to win. I don't even think that could happen. No, it wouldn't even matter. They would lose the tiebreaker. So they lose to Denver, it's pretty much over. I mean, I guess something with the Chargers could maybe happen, but their playoff odds right now are 25%. They lose to Denver, it's probably down to like 1 or 2%. I think it's that dire. It's that much of a make or break game. Coming up after that, like you said, if they manage to pull out that game, they're 1 game back at Denver in the win-loss column with the tiebreaker. Huge. Then they have 3 games against 3 teams that don't have as many wins as Denver combined. You got the 3-9 Titans, the 2-10 Giants, and the 2-10 Jaguars. That's 7 wins for those 2 teams, or those 3 teams. As you said, I am particularly scared if I'm the Colts of the Titans and Jags because those are division games. Those guys, again, division games can go anyway. You mentioned it in your story, like it's the NFL is a league where anything can happen any week, but particularly in interdivision games. The teams tend to kind of drag each other into the mud. They get the worst out of each other a lot of the times. They know each other's strengths and weaknesses. These games are ugly a lot of the time. And so
you say all this, I'm thinking about Ohio State and Michigan this past weekend, and it's like everyone, their mom picked Ohio State to win this game because they were so much better and higher ranked. And, here's Michigan with 5 or 6 losses, and they come in there and spoil the party. And I'll let you continue, but that's the theme we're getting at.
That's it. I mean, that's the thing. As I said, if you beat Denver, that you can't have the letdown game, which, again, Colts fans should remember recently. The Carson Wentz era Colts had a chance to lock up a playoff spot a couple of years ago and couldn't get it done, I think, against the Raiders and then the Jags. Like, those 2 teams that they should have beaten easily and couldn't get it done. So
we're
Titans,
talking bad
Giants,
teams. Those are bad teams.
They were bad. They're bad now. They're bad then. So they were. I mean, they are. You can't have the letdown game. Again, beating Denver would be huge. You get back to 500. You get within a game of Denver in the wild card spot. And you laid out in your story. We don't have to go through it here now, but Denver has a tough schedule coming up. They don't have a lot of easy games. I think they have the Chargers. They have the Chiefs. They have a Bengals team that's 4-8 but feisty with Joe Burrow. There's one other game I'm missing, but they have 4 pretty tough games to finish the season. Oh, the other game is the Colts. What am I thinking? Those are the 4. So yeah, not an easy schedule for the Broncos down the stretch. So it's hard to overstate how big this game is for the Colts. And you talked about development. If they lose, the season becomes all about development. But man, development is so much better and so much more crucial and important when you're playing meaningful games.
Yes.
It's cliche, but you learn how to win. You learn how to play in these big moments. Like, I think of what a gigantic missed opportunity it was last year when the Colts were winning those games down the stretch and Anthony Richardson wasn't there too. to go head to head against CJ Stroud in week 18, even if they lost. Like that, those are meaningful moments for your development and confidence. Hey, we were right. I was right there with CJ Stroud in a game that we could have won and gone to the playoffs. Didn't have that, right? So this year,
Right.
he's just behind. He's behind. And he was already a raw prospect, hadn't played a lot in college. So he misses all that time his rookie year. Not just the games and the experience, which are important, but just those moments in the NFL that you get to learn from. And he hasn't had a lot of those. But as going back to our conversation before, he's stacking them now. And if he gets to keep playing in make or break moments, I feel like that development and that growth is going to be exponential versus games that are meaningless down the stretch.
Absolutely. I'm thinking about Anthony Richardson starting in a playoff game, and obviously it will be on the road in this scenario, how beneficial that would be. Because if you think about it, pretty much every great player, I'm not saying Anthony's great now, he has potential to be, but every great player goes through sort of like their little conquest, their coming of age saga where you are the challenger and you get
Yes.
humbled in the playoffs, you get pushed down. Like it's very rare that you get in, you go on this run, kind of like Joe Burrow did. Like that's very rare where you get in the playoffs, you go on a run, you're only a few years into your NFL career, you're in the Super Bowl. Like that doesn't happen. Now you're seeing sort of the reality of that where the Bengals are struggling and it's not as easy as people think it is to just sustain success, let alone get there. And so all that to say, it will be really beneficial even to evaluate Anthony under the pressure of a playoff game. How does he perform? How does he prepare? How does he look? All of those things. Now, I'm not saying that's the end all be all for his evaluation process, but if you ask any GM, any scout, anybody involved with the Colts, would they rather be able to grade Anthony off of one more game in the playoffs versus not? They take the playoff game every time. And so that is going to be huge. But a point I do also want to make, Jim, is how big a playoff berth would be for this regime, so to speak.
Yes. Yep.
And that's something I haven't given much thought to prior to talking on the podcast about it. But Chris Ballard told us before the season he felt that they had a playoff team. I was like, all right. He also they felt that they were in contention for the division title. That ain't happening. So the drought continues in that department, barring any like major crazy collapse from Houston. I think Austin Mock has it at 4%, a 4% chance of the Colts winning the division, which it's just negligible at this point. It's very, very, very unlikely. But if he's able to get to the playoffs and in that 3-year playoff drought, if Shane Steichen, who again has said his main goal is to win. When Anthony was benched, it was to win. It was to give us the best guy to win. And all that to say, man, and I wrote it at the time, and I still kind of feel this way, if you don't make the playoffs and you wasted 2 weeks of it playing Joe Flacco, tough look. Tough pill to swallow. Like, it's hard. It's hard. And again, just for those listening, I know I've soften on this a bit, but I do think that through a very critical lens, I don't agree with this, but I can see for some people are coming from, there was an avenue to look at and say, hey, Anthony's just not getting it done.
Yeah.
Joe Flacco was a better passer. Hey, he had success early in the season. Let's go with Joe. I didn't agree with the decision. I can sit here now and say, oh, I was right. But like at the time, there is an argument, a sound argument to be made that like, hey, Anthony needs to just chill out and kind of figure out some things. And obviously we know a lot of that had to do with just his preparation away from the actual games and things like that. But still, if you waste 2 games and he didn't play, you didn't get any evaluation on him in those 2 games, and you lose those 2 games and you don't make the playoffs, like it's hard. I think the first question I'll ask, and I'm still going to ask it to give you all a preview of Chris Ballard after the season, is like, why should anyone trust your plan if the plan continues to change and also not work? Like, that's a big, big part of this. And so I don't want to make it seem like it's just on the players, only the players are involved here. I think a lot of people would benefit from getting a playoff berth seriously in this season. And, thinking of players and coaches, it's not just all on Anthony and his experience. And although that's paramount, that's number 1 on the list, I do think that it matters as well for Shane Steichen. You're our new coach. You're our young coach. You get in the playoffs. Yep. Let's see how you perform. Let's see how you grow up. Let's see what's different about you. Same thing. Chris Ballard, man, you haven't been to the playoffs very often here. We need you to get back in the dance. We need you to do something that makes it relevant or gives us a reason to say why you versus why not you. You know what I'm saying? So
Hmm.
those all those things matter. And even beyond that, thinking about some coaches, I don't know if we can get into this in a bit, but I don't know if Gus Bradley feels great about his job security going forward and things like that. So again, if you make the playoffs, you can at least slap the card on the table and say, "Hey, well, we won. We got a winning
Yeah.
record. We're in the playoffs. We're in the mix." Versus saying, "Oh, well, we were right there, so let's reevaluate some things, perhaps more critically than we would have."
I couldn't agree more, man. I really couldn't agree more how big this is for Chris Ballard. Not to say that it would be big for his resume and I guess for the faith that people in Indianapolis have in him. I don't necessarily believe that his job is on the line, playoffs
I
versus,
don't feel that way either.
versus not. But so I can't say like the stakes are enormously high for him, but I do think that in terms of the way you think about the Chris Ballard era, like they've made the playoffs twice. The first time was with Andrew Luck, and then that went away because of what happened with Andrew Luck. And the next time they made the playoffs was with Philip Rivers, and he retired after that season, and they went to Carson Wentz. So this time, if you make the playoffs, it's with the guy that you think can be the face of your franchise for the long
I
term
hadn't thought
future,
about that. Good point. Good point.
who is not, yeah, again, obviously you thought that way about Andrew Luck, but that was a different situation with all the injuries that he had had. So you can at least say we have the guy and we're on the playoff trajectory. That's huge. That's I mean 25 teams in the NFL would want that, or
Hmm.
20. I mean, obviously all the ones that missed the playoffs, but to have the guy you think is the face of your franchise and the young quarterback, and to be have made the playoffs. Now, again, like that would be an interesting playoff berth if you think about it for a half second, because they're either probably traveling to Kansas City to play the reigning two-time champs, or they're going to Buffalo to play the Bills and the guy that you hope Anthony Richardson can become in Josh Allen. So I mean that's the wildest dreams type of thing. But I just those games would be very, very tough, but you would get to see what the Colts could do in a game like that, and that would be fascinating. And again, we've talked about this before. You and I both are in the Chicago area, grew up around Bears fans. Like I think to me, having watched the Bears and a lot of other organizations, but the Bears closely for as long as I have, organizational stability is
Ooh,
so
preach it.
valuable,
Preach it.
and it's so underrated, and they don't have it, the Bears, and the Colts haven't had it recently either. But if you make the playoffs, you bring back Shane Steichen for a third year. And Anthony Richardson gets to keep the same offense. Again, I'm not saying his job is on the line either. I'm just saying that you've made the playoffs, you've shown success. Everyone has faith in each other that you're building something, and you get a third year of that combination. You get another year. Again, Ballard would keep his job, and to keep building. Like as much as I'm not trying to argue for keeping Chris Ballard or Shane Steichen, that's not what I'm saying. I do think organizational stability, the best teams in the NFL have that, and the Colts have a chance to have that if they take care of business here down the stretch.
Yeah, and just to piggyback off that thought, it's also harder to sort of reorganize your franchise after you've already taken a swing on the young quarterback.
100%.
Like usually, if you think about teams that take young quarterbacks, they sort of reload with everything. Where it's like Chris Ballard is an anomaly in that sense. I don't know how many GMs would have lasted as long as he has, given the
Mm-hmm.
circumstances and the lack of success. But usually, it's okay. We're gonna go new GM, new coach, and new quarterback. I mean, the Jets, for example, could be in that position next year, depending on whether Aaron Rodgers plays or not. It's like they have to get a new head coach. They got to get a new GM, and they have to most likely at some point get a new quarterback. And usually teams will try to do it all at once. So you're all coming in, you're all able to build and grow together, and there is no, breakage where you have to stop, reset. Okay, that offense you were working in for 2 to 3 years, yeah, scrap that. We got a new offensive coordinator, we got a new play caller. Learn this over the summer, and then you have to kind of work through the kinks and things like that. And also, given just how unique Anthony is, where whoever you bring in, whether it's Shane staying on or somebody else, years from now, whatever, any quarterback with Anthony's skill set that's more dual threat and a runner and can throw the ball, all those things,
Mm-hmm.
it's not as simple, I don't think, to just come in and implement a new system
Agreed.
for a guy. I mean, you look at the Ravens; they had to like revamp everything when it came to Lamar Jackson. They've done it a few times now, changing coordinators and stuff like that. However, it takes a hell of a player and a hell of a coach to
Yeah.
make it look as seamless as even they have made it look. So
Mm-hmm.
that is definitely something to keep in mind. But the last point I want to hit here before we get out of here is that um, the defense was awful. this past
Atrocious.
Sunday. It was so bad. And I usually try to keep my tweets to saying more or less what happened on the play, what I thought I saw. Okay, here's the last time this kind of happened, those types of things. Okay, he had a pick. This is his third or fourth pick of the season. But I had a couple of tweets where I was like, this is just bad. Like, I don't have some upper echelon analysis to give you. I don't have a true media, which is our fact system or our data system. I don't have a true media fact to give you. There's no next gen stat that I'm trying to search for. I was like, Jim, this was just bad football on the defense
Yeah.
side of the ball. They didn't force a punt until 6 minutes left in the fourth quarter.
Yeah.
Not a punt. Their stops, and I say stops in air quotes, was the Patriots kicker shanking like a 30-yard field goal right before halftime.
Yeah.
And then credit where credit is due. Zaire Franklin making a great break on the ball near the goal line, hitting it up in the air, and Julian Blackman picking off Drake May at the goal line. But again, those weren't punts. Like, they didn't even force him to get the ball out. And I will give the defense credit because when the game was on the line, they forced a 3-and-out after Anthony's second interception. And that got them the ball back for the game-winning drive. But outside of that 3-and-out, this defense was putrid. I'm looking at it now. I'll read it off to you. So, for those who don't know, they give us a stat package after the game, basically, where it lists the top 10 longest plays of the game for each team. And so for New England, they had a play that was 41 yards, Drake May scramble. Another run by their running back, Stevenson, 32 yards. A 29-yard pass from Drake May, 18 yards, 16 yards, 16. I mean, they had plays where they were just gashing this team over and over again, missing tackles. I mean, the middle of the field was just like a walk in the park. It was atrocious. I am so serious when I say this. And it's crazy to say that because, they forced turnover. They had a strip sack, and obviously they come out with the win. But I think, again, like I said at the beginning of the podcast, when Shane's talking about my gut feeling, told me to go for 2 and you want the ball to be in number 5's hands, you were like, I don't want the ball to be in anybody else's hands but ours because they could put Joe Schmo back over there and he's going to go down the field and score on us. Yeah. And they almost did. I mean, if they had 10 more seconds to get at least 10 yards closer, we'll be talking about a walk-off field goal. So I was just appalled at how bad it looked, especially after they had seemed to turn a corner and then they had Drake May out there looking like he was Tom Brady. So what was your perspective on the defense and perhaps what they need to do to make sure they don't ruin the chance that they've been given, and I will say this, by the skin of their teeth last week?
You can't give up 24 points to the Patriots. You can't. First drive. Here's the Patriots drive. 60 yards, 57 yards, 6 yards because they had inherited a short field. 70 yards, 51 yards, 67 yards, 54 yards. That was all before they finally forced the first punt. They just drove every time. Every time they had the ball, they drove. It was that simple, that easy. They forced the one punt, the Colts, and then they, like I said, they started driving down at the end of the game. It was 20 yards in 4 plays, and they had attempted that 68-yard field goal. So it was abysmal performance by the defense. I was kind of surprised they got gashed the way they did in the running game. The Patriots aren't a strong. Again, if Drake May scrambles, fine. Like I to a point, I understand. I think you should do a better job containing him. But 5 for 59, okay. And one of them we said was 41. So for the most part, contain that. 73 yards for Ramondre Stevenson on 18 carries. 62 yards for Antonio Gibson on 7 carries. They rushed for 200 yards. Like, you have Grover Stewart, you have DeForest Buckner. Like, those are your dudes. You can't have that. That cannot happen. I'm not saying it's those two guys' fault, but when you have both starting tackles in the game, you cannot give up 200 yards rushing. You just can't. Like, that is unacceptable, especially against a team like the Patriots. And especially when you did a much better job against a team like Detroit a couple weeks ago, rushing the ball. I mean, I know Detroit still ran the ball, but there was only 137 yards, 4.2 yards per carry, and that's one of the best offensive lines in football. So I don't know what happened. Like you said, maybe it's just a glitch in the system there for the Colts defense. But if they're gonna go on that run like we talked about down the stretch, these 4 games, like you better believe. Like we talked about Shane Steichen going back into the lab and doing some stuff during the bye week. Sean Payton's gonna do the same thing for Denver and poke and prod at the Colts. He knows that's the team that's closest to chasing him and knocking him out of the playoffs. He's going to be looking for every weakness, and this defense has a few.
Yeah, and I think the biggest among them is probably the middle of the field, where, again, if you can get these linebackers in space EJ Speed, Zaire Franklin, who again, Zaire I thought made some big time plays. I mean, he had the forced fumble, the sack and a half this past game. Obviously, like I said, he ricocheted the ball or hit it so it could be picked off by Julian Blackman. There's been some moments, but I think most times teams are winning against this linebacker group whenever they have to drop back in coverage at all. And
Yep.
I know that's just a part that they have to figure out. I asked Shane Steichen about it, and he said that was a good question, which means he's not going to answer it because most coaches when they say that they give you like a little nod and appreciation, but they're not going to really get into the details, which I understand that, like you don't want to give away your scheme and your corrections or whatever else, but it's more or less saying like I know that you know this is a problem and you got to get it fixed because allowing teams to just make those layup throws and not only make them but to turn them into first down after first down over and over again is not sustainable and it's not going to help you get to where you want to go, which is ultimately the playoffs. Playoffs, yes, the playoffs, like the more like the freaking playoffs. And so, I think this is huge. And again, looking at the opponents you're going to face, this Denver game is huge. They do have some players over there that they can get the ball to, and Bo Nix is offensive rookie of the year candidate, and he's played pretty well with Sean Payton. But again, you can't have him out there looking like he's Peyton Manning the year that they went to the Super Bowl and lost to the Seahawks. Not the last year. Peyton was,
Yeah.
love Peyton Manning, legend. He was not Peyton Manning the legend that last season
No.
in Denver. But the year when he threw like 50 touchdown passes and he's slinging it all over the field, you can't have Bo Nix looking like that guy this upcoming, or not upcoming Sunday, but 2 weeks from now. So I am very curious to see how the defense responds. We did not talk to the coordinators this week. So Gus Bradley, you off the hook, man. I gotta come find you or what? No, I'm joking. They don't have the coordinators talk during the bye week, which is understandable. But we will catch up with him, after next week, and all of us, and rightfully so, will most likely grill him on like what the heck is happening. How do you fix this? Because again, you don't apologize for winning, and you definitely shouldn't. It's not that big of a deal. However, you can't. I think everyone on that defense kind of knows. They got a bit lucky. They got bailed out, and they have to do a much better job playing complementary football, which just hasn't been the case very often for the Colts this season, quite frankly. It's been very up and down and kind of, these last two ones that they've had against the Jets and against I'm looking on the team that they just beat, the Patriots. It's been heroics at the end to kind of get you over the top.
Yep.
Where, you should have probably, not had the outcome like that. So, but shoulda, woulda, coulda, that doesn't change anything. It's about what is and what matters. And what matters now is the playoffs on the horizon. So I'm excited about it. And we'll see. I'm curious to see, last thing I'll say, Jim, I'm curious to see the chess match between Sean Payton and Shane Steichen, given that they'll have 2 weeks to prepare for their de facto playoff game, especially more so on the fault or on the part of the Colts.
Yeah, it's going to be fascinating. Like I said, it's going to be a fascinating battle, and the Colts have to have it. Denver obviously, it's not like a make or break game for them, but Colts have to have it. It's that simple.
It's that simple. So we will check in with you all. Not next week. I'm going to take some time to relax and see the family and basically enjoy, I guess, my time off if I get a little bit, which I will. I'm excited about that. But we'll be sure to check in with you all very, very soon and obviously give you some things to think about, updates. The last thing I'll say is I'll give you a tease. Got a story coming up pretty soon. I think you all will enjoy. It's Anthony Richardson adjacent. And so I'll leave it at that. But yeah, make sure you subscribe to the podcast, James Boyd Podcast. Wherever you get your podcast, search the name. It's up there. It's out there. Thanks for supporting us, and we'll talk to you all very soon.